You did it! You found the tutorial for Zoom for the cello. I will do a few measures, and then I will do a practice track to go with those measures. Remember, use this recording however you need. If you have to review things, stop the video, go over it again. I'll show you where some of the notes are for shifting, where some of the notes are that might be out of tune, and some rhythms that you might need help with. So if you find you don't get it the first time, that's normal, it's okay, and just repeat the work. All right, here we go. Zoom, cello, measures 1 through 10. First thing to think about is listening to the tempo that is set by the ensemble and making sure that you're subdividing to the 16th note. 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a. Great. Then when we cross over, on the C string we have F. Make sure that that F is high enough. What happens on cello is as we reach across the fingerboard, sometimes we bring our hand too low and we don't compensate for the fact that we're going across the fingerboard. We have to reach over to the C string. Something good to think about. Now, in measure 5, we have our first little bit of syncopation because of a tie. A tie connects 2 notes. It makes it longer. So if we look at measure 5, we have to count 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Notice the tie in the middle of the measure makes that D a full beat, 2 8th notes tied together. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and great. You'll see the same rhythm in measure 9 that you saw in measure 5. So make sure you're subdividing so you can count and be precise with where you place those 8th notes. Here is the practice track for measures 1 through 10. 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 measure 7 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Nice job. So that brings us to 10. Let's do a little tutorial for measures 10 to 18. But here comes the first challenging thing for rhythm. In measure 10, you have to see if you're on the beat or off the beat. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So you just have to do the math. There are 4 beats in that measure and they're being divided by either a note or a rest. So make sure that we count and keep a steady pulse. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. And then you just plug in the notes where they lie. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. And that happens a lot in this piece. So as long as you're subdividing and put the note precisely where it belongs, you're going to do great. Looking ahead, we have our first opportunity for shifting. So in measure 13, the recommendation is that you have open A, and then you go to 4th position and put your first finger on E. Now if you're in 4th position, your pinky will fall down on the instrument and be right on 4th finger G. Make sure your hand's not leaning on the cello and that your thumb comes around a little bit so you can stay on top of the cello. We have 4th finger G, and we have 3rd finger F sharp, and then he recommends 1st finger E, and then he recommends to shift to 4th finger high D on the A string. Now that's fine, but here's an alternate fingering, especially if you have a little more experience. If you look at 13, you could do 1st finger A so that you can do vibrato. 1st finger E, 4th finger G, F sharp, and then if you shift to 3rd position, you don't have to do a shift during a slur. Shifts during slurs are tricky because you're always going to hear the glissando. So instead of doing this, you could put your 3rd finger on E and then 1st finger on high D. And what's nice about that is just stay in 3rd position and you can play 4th finger B flat. You're set. Last little idea for rhythm here. Time to think subdivision to the 16th note. In measures 14 and 15, you have to think smaller, not randomly faster, precisely faster. So I start subdividing during the rest. We have 1 and 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 and 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a. And that way the 16th notes fit exactly where I'm counting. Okay, Here's the practice track. Measures 10 through 18 under tempo. 1, 3, and 4, and 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, and 2, and 3. 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, 1, and 2. 1, 2, E, and a 3, E, and a 4, E, and a 1, 2, E, and a 3, E, and a 4, E, and a 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, and. Now if you have to review all that shifting or those rhythms, go back and try again. But here's the tutorial for measures 18 through 28. In measure 18, if we're just thinking about the musical elements, we start very, very soft. And remember that S-U-B is short for the word subito, which means suddenly. Okay, so suddenly it gets very quiet at 18 with a big crescendo in measure 22 up to the forte. Another thing that we have to consider here is that we have a lot of double stops. Now, you're not required to play both notes. If you look at measure 20, it says D-I-V, which is short for divisi, which means divided. So when you see two notes, the top note belongs to the player on the outside of the stand, and the bottom note belongs to the player on the inside of the stand. So looking at measure 20, if you're the outside player, you'll play C, and then E flat, and then at 21, you'll play F natural, A flat, B flat, first finger E. So you're just watching that top note. And if you are the inside player, you're watching that bottom note. Okay, now let's just talk about the rhythm very briefly. So at 21, once again, you're on the beat or you're off the beat. There are 8 eighth somethings in there. We have eighth notes and eighth rests, and you just have to plug and play and make sure that you are subdividing correctly. So in measure 21, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and measure 22, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Again, you're just doing math, musical fractions that add up to a full measure. Then in 23, you have to subdivide a dotted quarter note. So let's make sure that at 23 we have 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. That happens 2 times. Okay, measures 18 through 28. Let's do a practice track. Ready? 3 and 4 and 1. Very soft, very soft. Very soft. Reach up to that nice D sharp. Good. Divisi. Choose your note. E flat. And 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 23. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 piano 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 2 and 3 and 4 and a crescendo all the way into 28. So now 28 to 39. This music is very similar to the opening, but we do get to add one new idea. If you look at measure 37, that's a tremolo. That's the Italian word for trembling, which means that we are not playing a rhythmic idea, we're playing an effect. So what you do with our bow is sometimes you do double down, sometimes down and up, but it's very fast and it's tension free. Make sure we don't lock our pinky and our thumb, don't lock our arms, keep everything relaxed, and make the sound by having motion in your hand. Okay, this is what it'll sound like. Very fast, light. And you want to make sure that you're not pressing down into the string. And if sometimes the bow does double down and sometimes the bow does double up, that's great, because when the whole orchestra plays together, it's going to have this really great effect. Okay, here's measures 28 through 39, practice track. Ready and go, and 1 and 2 and 4 and measure 30. Okay, subdivide 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, take 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 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 1 some of that again, go back. But if you're ready for the tutorial, here comes measures 39 all the way to 66. So what we look at here is at the maestoso, we change a bunch of things. Number one, key signature. Instead of a flat, now we have a sharp. And then it has the word maestoso, which means majestically. So it's not going to be zooming around like it was in the earlier measures. We also have a time signature change. So instead of 4 beats per measure, now we have 3 beats per measure. So we have to make sure we count differently. Last thing here, right away at 39, it says soli. How nice. Cellos, you get the melody. How terrific. No extra charge. So we start in first position, and then we have to reach back for that E flat, and then once we finally in 41 get to that open D, it gives us a chance to shift all the way to 4th position with that 4th finger G, and then in 42, F natural, and then first finger E, and then you see the dash at the number 4, that means to shift back to 4th finger D, and then he says, let's do a little Bach. Nice arpeggio. And then here you have an option at 44. You can stay in first position and shift, or put your first finger on C sharp, second finger on D, 4th finger on E. And then you're in second position, and that makes for a really nice musical fingering. Then the next challenge, if you look at measure 49, he has you go all the way up to the A, which is a harmonic on the string. Now, he's suggesting that you play solid, and that would be really beautiful, and you could use vibrato. But because we're still learning some of these positions, you might want to consider playing a harmonic, which means you touch the string very lightly with your 3rd finger. Then that means in measure 50, you can go back to 4th position and play 4th finger G, and then 3rd finger F sharp, 1st finger E, and then shift to 1st position for D and C. Probably an easier fingering solution at this point. Okay, here is the practice track, 39 to 66. 1 and 2 and 3. And 1, 2, 3. 1 and 2 and 1 and 4th finger G, 2nd finger F, 1st finger E, legato, 2nd position, 1st finger C sharp, and 3. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, and 47. 2, 3, 2, 3. Harmonic A, 4th finger G, F sharp, 52, and 1, 2, 1 and 2 and 3 and 56. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1. Molto crescendo. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And that takes us all the way to 66. Let's do a little tutorial here from 66 to 76. It's not really that everything is challenging, it's just that we want to make sure that we're predicting with our left hand. So our left hand has to get ready for the next note because we have all these leaps as we're doing pizzicato. So while as I'm playing first finger B, I don't have my hand far away from the fingerboard. I'm keeping my fingers close to the fingerboard so I can have my G ready, and then during the rest, prepping my hand for the B flat, and then reaching, my 4th finger G is ready. I'm always thinking about the next note, so my hand is hovering over that spot. So my hand never really goes away from the fingerboard, something to really consider. Now in 71, you have one of those great extensions. So as you're getting to the C sharp, you can see how my hand opens from A up to C sharp. If I try and do this, I won't make it. So I extend up from the first finger, and I use that as a way to expand my hand to the C sharp. Okay, so here's the practice track. We'll do a little bit slower from 66 to 76. Ready, and 1 and 2, 3, 1 and 2, 3, 1 and 2, 3, Let's do a little tutorial on what we have to look for at 76. These are the things you already know. 77, that's tremolo. Still, but now it's only worth one beat. So if you got rid of the tremolo, you would just have B, C, D, E. When we add the effect, same tempo, 1, 2, 3, 4. So you just follow what's printed for the duration and then add the effect of the tremolo. 78, you get the melody. Fantastic. Now, did you notice the key signature changed? So that was an F natural as opposed to F sharp, because look at that key signature. You got one flat in it. All right, moving on. 81, you get to work on ties and subdividing through a long note. So in 81, we have 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. So when you have a long note, and especially a long note that's tied, you want to make sure you subdivide so you come off of the tie precisely. 86, this is a great measure because you get to have all these 16th notes and really work on carving your bow back and forth. Now the rhythm for the bow might be something you want to check out first. So we have 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1. So the bow changes against the beat, which is one of the reasons why this is a little bit tricky. And then you want to add your left hand to it. Now you can practice it with slur staccato, 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4, just so you can feel the left hand and the right hand move together. But of course we don't want to keep slur staccato because these are just regular slurs. 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1. Same concept at 88. We have our S-U-B for subito at 89, which we already know. We have our DIV at measure 91, which is short for divisi, which means divided. We've already gone over how to subdivide measure 92, and in 93, you have to be very quick with a forte to piano with a 16th note slur. So here's 93. We have a big forte, 1, and then and 2, and 3, and 4, and 1. Okay, let's do a practice track. This is measures 76 all the way to 94. Ready? Reti and a 76, 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a tremolo. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 E and a 2 E and 3 and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 and 4. 1 E and a 2 and 3, 4. Subdivide 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 and 2 and 3 and 86. 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1, 2, 3. Lift your bow and 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 and a 1, 2, 3, 4. C sharp. Extension to high D. Divisi. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 and 1. Okay, practice tutorial from measure 94 all the way to 105. I just want to cover two things. If you look at measure 98, you'll see a bracket over 3 notes. That's because Mr. Meyer does not want to divide and have one person play B and the other person play D and G. He wants to have it all together in one large chord. Aim for the lower 2 notes. Let your arm come up so that it grabs the upper 2 notes. And when you do it like that, it allows the instrument to ring as opposed to just pressing down and trying to play all 3 at once. That way you have this big resonant full sound. The other thing to cover, you have a 4th finger on F natural at 103, and that's because of 102, but there's a fingering missing. So I would suggest putting your 1st finger on 102, and then you have 3rd third finger A, and then you can go right for fourth finger F natural in third position, and then shift to C sharp, and then reach back for B flat, and then reach all the way up to G. Remember, with these extensions, you're probably going to play out of tune, so when you play B flat, you have to really work to get back up to fourth finger G. So here is a practice track, 94 to 105. Ready? Let's do the pickup. 3 and 4. Position, 1 and a 4 and 1, 2, C sharp, reach back for B flat, extend your hand to G. And that takes us to a whole new world of tempo, of dynamic, of time signature, and key signature. So let's get started. This whole section is very different. Take a look, 5/4, that's 5 quarter notes per measure. Key signature, 2 sharps, and then the Italian andante misterioso, which means we're going to be slower and the quality of our sound will not be as sharp or accented. So let's start with having to count the rhythm in measure 108. In measure 108, it gets weird right away because you have a half rest followed by an 8th rest. So you're on the and of 3. So it's 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 5, and 1. And now in all these long notes, you've got to count to 5. And the way that's printed is it's a dotted half note tied to a half note. But you play it like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you don't play both notes separately. It's tied together for one long sound of 5 beats. Okay, starting at measure 118. Now, if you have a little bit more experience, you might want to consider not playing here. This would be what normally we would do if we're only in our 2nd or 3rd year playing. At measure 119, we probably play first position. Nothing wrong with that. But if you have a little more experience and you want to experiment some other places on the cello, you could do 4th position and just grab the D with a harmonic. So we have... finishing in 3rd position. That way, if you have the experience of playing the harmonics and shifting to 3rd and 4th position, you can kind of get the color of this character a little bit more easily. Okay, last thing, after long notes, short notes are hard to count because the ratio is so different. So in measure 122, you have a dotted half note and then you have 16th notes. So we have 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 5 E and a... So if you subdivide, it's not randomly faster, it'll be precisely faster. Here is 105 all the way to 124, a practice tempo. And you know what? Let's skip those first 3 measures rest. We'll do the pickup to 109. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 2 measures rest, And here's our next entrance at 119. Ready and go. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1 and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 5 E and a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that takes us into tempo 1. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, let's keep going. Here's the tutorial for 124 all the way to 145. Mostly because a lot of this material is now repeated because we're back to the original tempo. That's what tempo 1 means, the first speed. You'll notice the key signature goes back to the beginning, and you'll also see some very familiar rhythms and organization of notes. So we start with 125 with our tremolo, which you've become experienced with, and then we have our tie in 129, which again you've become experienced with, which happens again in 133. At 134, we're either on the beat or off the beat, which again, you're experienced with, but here's a slight variation on a theme. You have the melody at 135, and you have to figure out how to get up to E in a musical way. So as cellists, we do a lot of rhythm. So when we see something melodic, sometimes we have to work that out a little bit more than our friends in the violin section because they get much more experience playing melodies. So looking at 135, I'm going to make sure I really connect 1, 2, then I'm going to shift to second position because I want to be able to do vibrato and not have this because that breaks up the line. Now, if you're not ready for second position, that's okay, but if you have more experience, I highly recommend second position on the F sharp. And then, since we're already shifting, I think everyone can do this. At 136, you can go to fourth position on the D string and play third finger B, and then get ready for your first finger E. 1 and 2. Then you can go back down into first position. Now the other option, all first position, 1, 2, 3, 1 and 2, which is a great way to start. Okay, last thing. Now, regardless if you feel comfortable or not, 139, that goes to fourth position. So we bring our hand all the way up against the cello. Our thumb is against the instrument, but our hand is not. We bring our arm forward so we can stay above the string. We have first finger E, third finger F sharp, and that note with the 3 ledger lines is fourth finger G again. And then one more time. I know we covered it, but you get a choice. You can do the shift that's recommended, but you're going to get a glissando, so you might want to consider putting your third finger on E and your first finger on high D. And then added bonus, you're already there, so you can be much softer if you do third finger A on the D string instead of open A. It's a hard string to make soft. And he's got that subito piano again, so we have to figure out a way to do what the composer wants. Okay, that's all the stuff to review and learn. Here's the practice track. Measure 124 all the way to 145. Ready and a go, E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a tremolo. Ready, B flat. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. Measure 129. Subdivide. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, stuff in there. So if it was a rhythm or a shift or a dynamic, go back, listen again, or practice on your own. Either way, this tutorial is to make your practice easier. All right, headed to 145. Here's the tutorial. To the end, we have these words. Più allegro, that means more faster. 151, accelerando, faster. Vivace, lively, faster. 159, accelerando al fin, which means faster all the way to the end. So making sure that we just get faster, 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 and hence the name of the piece, zoom to the end. Now 145 looks weird, it's not hard to play. Everything is on the beat, but Mr. Meyer wants it very short. 1, 2, 3, 4. Very dry, very short. To 153, where we have our F natural, and then we have G. Now, it's interesting that he's chosen to put a first finger on that F natural. Now, for me, I don't see why that's necessary, so what I suggest is just putting your second finger on F, fourth finger G, F. The only reason that there might be a suggestion to put your first finger on F is that maybe there's a consideration that people don't like to move their pinkies that fast. Well, that might be true, but otherwise you have to shift to fifth position and then make sure your hand is open and extended so that your second finger can be balanced. So I suggest second finger F in measure 158, fourth finger G. All right, one last little tricky little rhythm. In measure 161, you have a 2-4 measure, so just count to 2, don't count to 4. And then musically speaking, it's just loud and fast. You ready? Okay, 145 to the end. Più allegro. Practice tempo, so just, neither of those words. Here we are. Ready and a go, E and a 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 1, and 2, and 3, and 50, 1, and 2, and 3, 50, 1, and 2, 3, 4, 1, and 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. And that's the whole tune. Thanks for sticking through the entire tutorial and all of the practice tracks. Make sure to go over any measures that were challenging many times. And if you develop a good habit, great. Practice it again so it becomes a great habit. Remember, if you practice every day, by the end of the year, you'll be taller.